Welcome to the Agent Bridge podcast. We're your hosts, Brandon Baca.
And I'm Marl Hessen.
The Agent Bridge is the proven path to real estate success without the burnout. All right, episode number 15 of the Agent Bridge, Should I Build a Real Estate Team? We're going to talk about the ins and outs of real estate team building, how to build them, how they work, why you should, why you shouldn't, all of that stuff. But before we get to that, as we sit here in Franklin, Tennessee on a very icy day, before we get to that, I want to just remind people about the mortgage program through ownership. So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So if you go to the link that'll be in the show notes, there'll be a video that you need to watch. It'll have you sign an NDA after that, a non-disclosure agreement. And then it'll take you to another video that talks a little bit more about this program. But basically, as an agent, if you refer business to Ownership Mortgage, and at the moment, I'm the only ownership mortgage rep in Tennessee. So if you refer business to me in Tennessee, then you can get up to $1,800 back per mortgage you refer. Mm-hmm. Scales based on the mortgage amount. Takes about a $550,000 loan to get the full amount, based on a couple of factors. If we cut costs to match another loan or something like that, you might not get the full 18, but basically $1,800 back. And then if you refer your friends to the program, you can make up to $700 off any loan they refer.
Right. And it's fully RESPA compliant. It's been checked out by the Consumer Protection Bureau, all that stuff. Everything's been legally done. It's just a great innovation in the mortgage space. And so we're excited to let you guys know about that. And
yeah, I can't stress that enough. It's fully RESPA compliant. So it's you actually end up becoming a small owner. You have a small ownership stake in the company because you buy a Class T share. But yeah, it's a great program. Yeah. But
yeah.
Go,
all right,
check out the link.
Yeah,
in the
go
show
check
notes.
it out. We'll put it in the show notes. All right. So again, back to should I build a real estate team? And as we were prepping for this, there's a lot to talk about here. We're excited about this episode. And we've got some history building teams and coaching teams, and so we want to talk with people about how these work, why to do them, and why not to do them. And so first I want to talk about the type of person that comes to me or comes to us and says, hey, I want to build a real estate team. Okay. And the first person or the first scenario that I see is an agent that is burnt out in production, right? They're tired of work until 9 or 10 o'clock every night, tired of showing houses on weekends, and they're wanting to kind of get out of the production part of real estate or being a realtor. The second is two agents that want to collaborate. So you've got it's maybe a husband and wife or a couple of friends, and they come to me and they go, hey, we want to build a real estate team and we want to call it XYZ Real Estate Team. Okay, so that's the second type of scenario. The third type of scenario is the agent that likes the idea of a team, right? They've seen somebody that's been successful at it and they want to emulate that. And any of those scenarios is fine, but there's a lot of things that you have to think about in terms of building a team. So before we get into those different scenarios and what works and what doesn't work, let's just talk about what a team is, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what scenario you're coming from, if you are building a team.
I will say real quick, let me interject. Any of those are fine.
Yeah.
The best reason to do this is to create the next phase of your career.
Yes.
You're scaling a business, you're growing a business, and it's the next logical step. Starting a team with your friend, it is fine, but that usually the most successful implementations of this are the next phase of your business. It's growing your business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we can go ahead and talk about it. When you have two people that come, when I have two people that come and they say, hey, we want to form a team, I'm immediately concerned because, and I don't ever necessarily talk people out of it, but I do ask questions that get them to think about typically things that they haven't thought about, right? When it's a husband and wife, it's a lot more likely to work, but basically the main thing is about distribution of the things that have to go into a real estate transaction. So it's like, well, who's going to do what? You have to have very clear guidelines in terms of who's going to do what. And typically, they're going, well, we're going to split everything 50-50. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great too. But what happens when you have one of you sells 5 houses in a month and the other one sells 1, and then you're splitting half of those transactions?
And there are very valid reasons for starting. Let's say you both have completely different skill sets.
Yeah.
But as you just indicated, that has to be discussed up front. If one person's not going to be at the level of production of the other, they have to bring something to the table. Whether it's budget planning, or maybe they've got great marketing skill sets, or maybe they got really they're good at back end systems. They have to bring something to the table to equal out the production of the other agent to make it to long term sustainable.
Well, yeah, and you've got to talk about and have agreement around who's going to do what. So it's just incredibly important to do that, because there's just so many things that can go wrong without talking about them up front or deciding what's going to happen.
So I cut you off. You were going to say, what is a team?
Yeah, so we can go into that a little bit. So what is a team? So typically what you've got is whatever scenario these agents are coming to us with, we need to define what that is. And so basically what you've got is, basically you have either a massive network and you've got transactions come out of your ears and you need somewhere to delegate that. In combination with maybe a paid lead spend through Zillow, Realtor.com, Opcity, any number of paid lead sources. And you're handing off this business to agents in exchange for a lower split from them, right? So you're like, hey, I'm going to hand this to you, but in exchange for that, I'm going to get X percentage of it, 20, 30, 40% of it, because I'm bringing the deals to you. So all you've got to do is the customer service part. So basically all the lead generation, a big portion of the lead generation is paid for or done by that lead agent. And then that's handed off to agents that are on their team.
Which is a big deal. I mean, these days, a lot of these lead sources are very expensive.
Yep.
So dropping, a $25, $30, $45 lead in somebody's lap is a big deal.
Right.
Just throwing that out there as if you're going to get a 50-50 split, the lead better be a good quality.
Absolutely.
But, it is a good offer.
Right. And the other thing is there are often performance requirements to get the highest quality leads. So if if you're thinking about joining a team, as a real estate agent, you have to think about that, and that it's completely fine. It makes sense. It's like, well, to do that, they either have to, a lot of agents or agent teams require a certain number of sales brought to the table every month, or a certain amount of lead generation and follow-up done to get the highest quality leads. Because as the team leader, depending on what they're going to spend on that lead, they're not just going to hand it to anybody. They want to hand it to a capable agent that's doing the work.
Yep.
Right. And so if you're an agent that's not doing daily activities and not doing follow-up, they're not going to give you that lead. And if you're a team leader, you shouldn't give out leads to people who have some sort of performance expectation.
The most common thing we see is production requirements or appointment set requirements, things like that.
Right. Exactly. The other thing is teams, they require a certain mindset. So the mindset is, number one, there is no such thing as a bad lead. Now, this is one that's hard for people to wrap their heads around, because depending on when that lead is coming in and who that lead is coming in from, a lot of the response from these lead sources is, I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
Why are you calling me?
That's weird. Your information just dropped in my lap in my CRM out of nowhere.
Yeah. Your correct name, phone number, and email dropped into my CRM, and we don't know where it came from. Somebody stole it. Yep. No, but basically people filled it out. Either they forgot about it or they don't want to talk to you. It's sort of that idea of like walking into a retail store and they say, hey, are you, can I help you find anything? And you say, nope, just looking.
Yep.
And so that person who's filled out their information and put it online, that's going to be their response is, nope, just looking. And they don't really want to engage with it.
Yeah. What do you say when you're on a car lot? Nope, just browsing. Yeah. I'm just killing my Saturday at a car lot.
Right. So basically what they're telling you is what stage of buying they're in, and they may not be ready right now. But it's just important to remember that is not a bad lead. They're just not ready to buy right now.
That's right.
Or they may be ready to buy right now, but you have to follow up with them appropriately or work around that objection, right? As people kind of tell you or trying to get you off the phone. So realtors who are on teams and team leaders need to understand it's like you're going to pay for a lead source and you're going to get these leads and they're going to say, nope, just looking, or I didn't fill out anything. So you have to understand it's like, okay, well, there's no such thing as a bad lead. Rule number one. That follow-up is the most important activity. The best teams in the country have an average follow-up of 27 touch points per lead before they'll move them into a pond, right? So they're following up with them very consistently over time to make sure that lead is or is not a buyer or seller.
Yeah, and it takes an average of 17 touch points before you even get a response in a lot of cases.
Yeah, so you're going to be, if you're on a team or if you're a team leader, you're going to be driving towards these follow-ups that feel like they're going nowhere before something turns over. So you have to sort of like remove emotion from these calls. And so that takes a certain mindset of, hey, I've just got to fall into a system here where, basically my CRM is going to populate my follow-ups every day, and I'm just going to do it regardless of the result.
Most of these internet leads are 12 plus months out.
Yeah.
Almost all of them. Facebook, Google, any of them. Some of them are better than the others.
Mm-hmm.
Zillow tend to transact a little faster, but most of the time, these internet leads that you're going to be getting if you're on a team, 12 plus months out.
Mm-hmm. And appointment setting is the driving force. So everything that you're doing is around setting the appointment, of which you're going to have a 50-50 no-show. So even when you get someone to an appointment stage, half of them aren't going to show up or are going to bail on it. And that's part of understanding. So you're just doing a lot of work, a lot of follow-up, a lot of phone calls. What I've found most of the time is realtors don't want leads. They want appointments.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where you have to differentiate whether you're a team leader or as an agent. Is it a lead or is it an appointment? Most agents aren't going to do the follow-up necessary to get the appointment. And most appointments are going to be high-cost lead sources like Zillow or Realtor.com. Yeah. So they're anywhere from $200 to $1,000 a lead, depending on the zip code. And also, if you think about a lot of these new lead sources that are coming out, like Zillow Flex or OpCity, they're taking 35% off the top. So those leads are thousands of dollars.
Yep,
is how much so you have to think about that as you're out there prospecting and doing follow-up and all that stuff. So,
and some of these larger teams will have inside sales agents, ISAs, that will work them further down the funnel so that you are going on more appointments. But some teams don't, and you have to just understand what you're getting yourself into. Am I going to have to work this lead down the funnel and then set the appointment? If so, just make sure you understand that on the front end when you're joining the team.
Right. So I want to talk about where team leaders went wrong in 2022. Because we're coming off of, or 2021 and 2022, we're coming off of, this sort of insane, crazy market. Everything's good. Everybody's making money. You get your real estate license. You have sales right out of the gate. So you have this super hot market and you're playing in that market. And then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from underneath you. And so I want to talk about where team leaders went wrong in 2022. So number one, there were a lot of agents that had so much business that they had overflow. I would challenge that there are probably not a lot of people that do have that overflow right now. They don't have more than they can handle. And again, that's generalizing. Okay, I'm sure there are some specific agents that have tons of overflow in the business right now, but there's a lot of agents that got the rug pulled out from underneath them. So because of that, because they had overflow, because they were making lots of money, they had extra money to spend on lead sources. So what they weren't doing is running proper numbers on ROI, right? They weren't going, how much does this lead source cost? And then how much am I making profit off of this after the agent commission?
Yep.
So, you've got, if you're making, $20 or $25 or $30,000 a month, and you've got this really exciting lead source and it's only going to, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to pay for this and it's going to bring me money. And by the way, these people who are selling these lead sources are going to make it sound amazing. Right? It's like, yeah, we're going to drop business into your lap. All you got to do is call them, and they're going to buy a house. So you've got all of this money out there and lead spend out there, and realtors weren't watching their ROI. And so when the market shifted, they go, oh man, I've got this $5,000 or $6,000 in lead spend or $10,000 in lead spend, and I don't have any ROI on that. So that's one main reason. And basically when they're making money, it's all covered up. Because when you're making money, you're not watching all those like particulars.
And we have plenty of zip codes here in town with Zillow that are 10 grand a month.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're spending $120,000 a year on leads. You need to make sure that you're closing enough business to justify it.
Exactly. The other thing is that they didn't build good systems. So, again, when everyone's making money, they're not worried about the particulars. And so these systems a lot of times didn't get built. And so you're not challenging your agents to do the proper amount of work. And then you're just giving like leads out to everybody. And so these agents don't have any necessarily performance requirements, or these real estate team leaders didn't put performance requirements in. They just said, here's some stuff, go take this and go sell it. And so they didn't build good systems into it.
And if you didn't build a good system, you can't train a new agent, and you need to train them to tell them how you want things done. So
Correct.
like you have to have the system built, you have to have it checked and balanced, and then work on bringing on people on your team, and then show them exactly what you expect from them.
Right, exactly. The other thing is they stopped focusing on the organic database or referrals, which is really where a lot of the money is in this business, or the cheapest lead source is what you're spending on your organic database and the referrals from that organic database. So they depended too much on Zillow or Realtor.com and didn't take care of the people that were around them, where you're going to get the highest return.
Yeah.
Right.
Paid
on
lead
time and money.
sources will feed you now. Those organic leads will feed you for your lifetime.
Right. And we talked about database a couple of weeks ago. It's like, as you build your database and you're keeping up with them and you've set up good systems and you're offering value to your database, those referrals are going to come. That's where it's your highest revenue, highest ROI is organic database. So it makes sense, even though it's like, okay, well, that's a client I closed 2 months ago or 6 months ago. You still need to do the work on taking care of them long term and inviting them to these events that happen over the course of the year and making sure that they have what they need from a community perspective, things like that. And then the big one is they didn't continue recruiting agents. So would you talk about this? Because we were talking about this a little bit before the show in terms of like how team leaders need to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most team leaders struggle with this the most. I think they are so hung up on production that they don't shift their mindset to recruiting.
Yeah.
And a lot of agents, they think that this is the next logical step. We need to build a team, and they're right. But you have to be ready from a mindset perspective to build a team. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but getting some sort of assistant is a great first step to learn how to delegate certain tasks. You probably do everything the way you want it done, and you want to hold on to a lot of these tasks. They have to be delegated on a team.
Yeah.
So getting assistant is a great first step, but then you have to shift most of your time to recruiting. Mm-hmm. And this doesn't just apply to real estate, right? So in the corporate world, as you move up the ladder, you become a puzzle builder. Mm-hmm. You are no longer pushing buttons, if you're in technology or whatever it is you do, building widgets. You are now responsible for finding the pieces and putting them in the right places.
Right.
And when you're building a team, that's exactly what you're doing. You're finding great agents and you're plugging them in certain places on your team to grow. And that is now your lead generation. It's finding new team members.
Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to continue to grow.
Yeah, that's where your sales, your lead follow-up is going to happen, is in the agent pool. You're running an HR business now.
Yeah, and sure, you can close some business. If you want to hold on to a few of your closest members in your sphere, that's a great place to keep up with production. But you have to move to recruiting. Recruiting is your number one activity once you become a team leader.
Right, and I've had so many. They think that their team is going to stay their team forever. It's like, oh, we get along so great, and it's just not reality. People's lives change. Right? Somebody's going to get married. Somebody's going to have a baby. Somebody's going to want more money, and they feel like, okay, well, I don't need to be on a team anymore. I've got
They
good
think they
stuff
outgrow
going.
it.
They
Yeah.
outgrow the team.
Yeah.
That's part, and you don't have to be upset about that if you are staying in that recruiting phase.
You want people to feel like they've outgrown the team because it shows you've created producing agents. They've gone on their own, and you can replace them with new agents.
Right. I kind of think of it like college football. It's like how you build your program. It's like there are certain college football coaches who are known for creating, NFL prospects. And so you're going to have a fresh crop of recruits coming that want to join your team because they know what you can do for them. So that's not a bad thing.
Your team becomes very attractive
Yes.
when they see producing agents going out on their own,
Yeah.
and being highly productive. Like that, somebody else looks at that, a new member of your brokerage or whatever sees that, and they're like, "Hey, Brandon just created this team that's churning out producing agents. I want to join that team."
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that I will tell you is, and this is coming from some of the top coaches in the industry, some of the top real estate minds, is they're saying for team turnover on teams that were built during COVID, it basically is going to be around 75% of your team is going to be different than it was.
That's high.
Yeah, it's super high, but the reality of it is the people who came in during COVID, a lot of the agents who came in during COVID are not going to have the staying power. And we already have a high turnover rate in the industry.
Yeah, there's a high number of agents that don't make it past 2 years. So
Yeah. So combine that with, post-COVID, everybody's wanting to get into real estate. And so, yeah, a lot of people are just not going to have the staying power. So you need to, they either have to, and if you're an agent and you're a COVID agent, you have to be adaptable, right? This is going to take more work to create the same results, period. So you just have to own that and adjust your daily activities so that you can continue to make the same money that you made during COVID. So nothing's wrong with you. We're not trashing COVID agents, anything like that. It's more like it's just going to take a different level of activity to create the same results.
yeah, this point really needs to sink in because you have to be ready to shift from production to recruiting, or else the team will fail. If you always feel like you're getting pulled back into production and you're never focused on recruiting, the team will fail. You'll have to go back into production and you'll have to start all over.
Right.
So just make sure that you have money in the bank, the mindset's there, you have a good administrative assistant or some sort of role on your team that can take off a few things off your plate, and then start to think about shifting towards building this team.
Right. So let's talk about should I build a real estate team? Yes, right? If that's a direction that you want to go, you should absolutely do it. But what I will say is grow it the right way. A lot of the challenge that we run into as real estate professionals, especially, it's like, okay, we're dealing with mostly, agents who are getting into this business, especially with the turnover rate, or agents that have had success. They want to grow things fast, or they want to grow, like they see somebody who's done something, who's built a great team, but they don't think that it took them 10 years, 11 years, 15 years to build that team, to get it where it is.
Yeah,
And
well said.
So you've got to understand that there's an amount of longevity that goes into this. There are steps that you have to take. Fast growth is dangerous growth. And so you have to kind of own that going in, that this is a long-term decision. It's a long-term process. And you can do this and maintain profitability on the way and make progressive steps. But you can't do this and compare yourself to other people that have been doing this for 10 to 15 years. It's just going to take some time.
It takes a lot of time. Yep.
So you've got to grow it low and slow and do it the right way, maintain profitability. You got to know your numbers, all that stuff. Okay. All right. So the other thing is, before you start recruiting agents, you need to become a master of the thing that works best for you in your business. Now, I will tell you, I don't think you should start building a team until you know how to get 40 to 50 transactions a year with you, a realtor assistant, and an administrative assistant. That level of delegation, first of all, it's once you build your delegating processes, then you can scale. But you can do 50 transactions a year, and maybe you have 2 realtor assistants, and still have your weekends, and still maintain profitability, and still not have to spend money on leads, pay everybody well, and it will work, right? You can make a lot of money. But the reason that I say this is because so many agents do not know how to delegate.
Delegating is hard.
It's hard. It's a skill set. There are ways to do it, but so many agents, they just cannot let go of control of the deal, and they keep jumping in because they go, okay, well, this agent is in this deal and I've got to jump in and solve the problem for them. And it's like, no, you need to teach them how to solve the problem for themselves.
Yeah. High performers have a very tough time delegating. They think no one else can do it as good as they can.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, when you're building your team, you're probably right. No one else on the team is going to do it quite as effectively as you can. You just have to pick and choose what activities you're delegating and making sure they're not your money generating activities at the very beginning, and teach them how to do it the way you want it done. And, you know, if you hire good agents, they'll come through, and then you can start to continue that delegation process more and more until you're completely out of production and you're on to recruiting and you're building, a large effective team.
Exactly. So yeah, become a master of the thing that you do best and build it into systems as much as possible and delegate appropriately. So it's going to be incredibly important to get that done first. So whatever you're doing for lead generation, referrals, events, all of that stuff as a solo agent, do that as well as you can. And then it's time to start bringing on agents. And like I said, I do like the idea of realtor assistants, because realtor assistants can show houses, they can write contracts, they can, help you manage the different aspects of the business with proper delegation. And so I like the idea of realtor assistants first.
Yeah.
Right. And then they can build it. You can build them into good team members as they go. And also they can be to potentially help you with the operations part of building. Okay. So again, optimize your life and your time first at a small scale. Then we can grow. Okay. The other thing is, when you're delegating, what you're looking for is 3 things. This comes from Pat Lencioni's, I can't remember the name of it. It's like Perfect Team Member or something like that. It's hungry, humble, and smart. Okay. So you need someone who can be coached. Someone who's not averse to or doesn't feel like they know better all the time, right? So someone that's humble, that can be coached. Someone who's hungry, that needs to make money, right? They need to be driven and hungry. And then the other one is smart. They need to be able to solve problems without you having to be involved every single step of the way, right? If people are coming to you, like when you're bringing these agents on and you're starting to delegate to them, you're going to know. It's like after initial period, right? Let's say 30 days of, hey, we're working through these processes. If they keep coming back to you on every little thing, they're probably not the right person.
Exactly. Good problem solving skills go a long way in this business.
Yeah. So yeah, you want someone who's smart and can solve problems. Okay. So once you've delegated to 1 or 2 of people that are like that, from a showings perspective, potentially writing offers, potentially doing negotiations. And let me back up here. I may have mentioned this before in a previous podcast, but I don't remember. But they asked Dr. Oz one time. You guys know Dr. Oz, and he was on Oprah, and he has his own show, but he still maintained his life as a surgeon. They asked him, well, how do you do all of these things and you're still a surgeon? And he said, well, basically what I do is I delegate everything I can, and I do only the thing that I have to do. So when he's going into a surgery, he goes, he scrubs up, he walks in, everything's prepped for him. He does the surgery, and then he leaves and they close up and everything from there. So he's got it down to only the thing that he needs to do. For you as a real estate professional, you need to do like the things that you need to do is initial consultation, right? To build rapport with the client. You need to do help with the negotiation, and strategy of negotiation, help negotiate the repairs, and show up at closing. Those are the 4 things that you need to do. Everything else in between, you should be able to delegate effectively.
Agreed.
So if you can, basically what you're doing is you are taking a real estate transaction and shrinking your time spent to about 3 to 5 hours to make the return on that. So yeah, it's a time for money thing.
That's right.
So if you think about that, it's like, okay, well, if I can do a transaction in 3 to 5 hours, how many transactions I can do a month? So if you think about it, that's quite a bit. You should be able to do 4 to 5 a month pretty easily. After that, okay, then it's time to buy leads, right? After you've started to, like, you've got some overflow from your referral network, as you've worked up maybe the price points that you are able to work with, because that's going to be a decision that you're going to have to make. It's like, okay, well, I can only take price points at above 300,000, 350,000, 400,000, whatever. And then you're going to delegate to your, to those assistants, that other stuff. So they're starting to get some business going for themselves as well. And they're able to negotiate on their own, and you don't even have to touch it. And they're starting to make profit on, and they're starting to make you profit on that. Then it's time to buy leads.
Yep.
And start recruiting agents.
Yes.
So it's going to be a little messy at first, but you want to be working on that. Yeah.
And, some of these lead sources, like we talked about earlier, are very, very expensive. So you need to be closing a certain amount of business before you can even afford to buy these leads and then hand them off and not take, as large of a chunk of it as you were before. So you have to be prepared from a business perspective, from cash in the bank perspective, to get ready to buy leads, because some of that profit's going to go out the door to your team, as it should.
Well, exactly. And so understanding, we talked about this a little bit before, but price per lead. Okay, you're going to have somebody who sees a house online and they want to get information, and they're going to give name, phone number, and email address. That's a top of funnel lead or an aspirational lead. They're about a year out, less than 1% conversion rate. Then they're going to work further down the funnel to the higher price leads, which are Zillow, Realtor.com. Now, if I'm coaching a team leader, I want them to start with the higher cost leads, because long-term, they're going to have to build systems that are going to allow them to get those cheaper leads that can be worked down the funnel.
Yeah. You can't sign up for a bunch of lead sources, wait 3 months, and then say, none of these worked, I'm closing them all out. These, minimum 6 months, ideally 12, before you start seeing some revenue from those lead sources. And you're going to have to give them a shot, because a lot of the lead sources that are $5, $6, $3, it's 366 days.
Right. Well, and you have to be dialed in on the process first. You need someone who's going to be doing the right things day after day after day, rather than they come in, somebody makes one phone call, they don't answer, and that lead, nothing happens with that lead.
Yeah. But it is a numbers game. I mean, let's say at the end of the year, you spent a couple dollars on a lead source that are 12-month leads. You're going to have 4,000 or 5,000 in your database, and there's a percentage of those, maybe about 1%, a little less, that are going to convert. So you're going to have some transactions there. You just have to, your agents have to be good at follow-up.
Exactly. Again, recruiting new agents needs to be a fundamental strategy in growing your team. That's something that you need to be doing always. You need to be sourcing agents onto your team, because that's going to be that is your new job, is recruiting agents. And so you have to own that. It's like RL said, it's puzzle pieces, right? So you're going to have people, again, move out of your program and other people moving in. So you always have to keep that funnel coming or going all the time.
Use every conversation, though, as a training opportunity. If you see something you don't like, don't wait and let it build up, and then at the end let them go and never have told them what you didn't get that you expected. Use these conversations you're having with these agents that are on your team as training opportunities. Say, hey, when you made that call, here's what I heard. Here's what I would have liked to have heard. Here's how I would have done it differently. And just use it as a training opportunity. If people are joining a team, they want to be coached.
Right.
They want lead sources and they want to be coached, or else they would be out there doing it on their own.
Well, and that brings me to the other key point, right? And where this is, if you haven't been listening, listen now. This is one of the most important things. People are joining your leadership. So there are a lot of agents that start teams, and they're misguided when they say, well, somebody's here to get leads. Wrong. Okay. That's a part of it. That's a part of the benefit. But as the leader, they're there to learn from you. So they're joining your leadership. That's the most important thing. And you consistently have to be developing your leadership skills to be an effective team leader. Like that is between recruiting, working on systems, developing leadership is going to be a key strategy for you in terms of like keeping your team intact and developing culture in the right way. But they're joining you.
If they thought they could do it on their own, they wouldn't let their 70-30 split get cut to 50-50.
Right. That's exactly right. So don't be misguided. I understand that they're not joining for Zillow. They're joining for you, and they want to learn from you. And so that means you continually need to be growing. You continually need to be setting the example and understand that your agents will do what you do. They're going to be watching you. They're going to see what your lead generation looks like. They're going to see what your follow-up looks like, what your interaction with people looks like, to guide them. So, yeah.
You also need to show them, that not every call results in an appointment, or not every call results in, a listing appointment.
Right.
If you have a call night with your team, which I highly suggest, jump on the phone, show them that, hey, I get hung up on too.
Yeah.
But guess what? I pick up the phone, I make another phone call.
Right.
Every single phone call doesn't result in business. Like, this is a process. And if you show them that, then they understand, because a lot of people get frustrated with these internet lead sources because they take so many touch points and so many people say, hey, I didn't sign up for this, or I didn't put my information in. And they just get turned off and they say, this lead source is junk. I'm not calling anymore. They have to see what failure looks like and what success looks like.
That's exactly right. I couldn't have said that better. Okay, so let's just recap here. Again, we've talked about, what is a real estate team? So we've talked about what it is. We've talked about where team leaders went wrong in 2022 and not developing good systems. But should you build a real estate team? The answer is, if you listen to this, you say, like, I'm still in. And the answer is yes. Then do it the right way. Do it slow. Maintain profitability. Watch your numbers. Understand the ins and outs, and understand your role in it as a leader and as you working on the business rather than in the business. You're going to spend a lot more time working on it than in it as a team leader. So it's just important to understand that as you grow. And I'm excited for you. I'm excited for your growth if this is the path you've chosen. And let me know if there's something I can do to help you.
Yep.
Any final words from you?
Just that most team leaders fail because they can't pull themselves out of production.
Yeah.
So just make sure that you're ready to make the shift, and then commit to the recruitment and the leadership. And the team building is profitable. It works.
Yeah.
Like, it's proven. But you have to be ready to pull yourself out of production. And a lot of agents, high producing agents, they've got big egos.
Yep.
They don't want to pull themselves out of production. This is the time, if you're going to build a team, it's the time to do it.
I completely agree. All right, guys, thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks.